So according to Darwin, mutation is the only cause for evolution. What is saltation? A single step large mutation is called saltation. So what is genetic drift? It is the random changes in the gene frequency in a small population purely by chance is called as genetic drift. Variations are very important for what? For evolution. Hello everyone, myself B. Shobarani from the Department of Biology, Vidyashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. What did we learn in the last session? In today's session, that is session 4, we are going to learn about the mechanism of evolution and Hardy-Weinberg law. What did we study in the last session? I think you remember we studied about the different types of evidences. As you know, the evidences are the sources for to state that the evolution has taken place. Like we have a good number of evidences like the paleontological evidence, embryological evidence, then physiology and biochemistry, molecular biology, comparative anatomy and morphology. We also studied even natural selection. We also studied natural selection, that is industrial melanism, with an example of industrial melanism. Moving on to the today's session, mechanism of evolution. I think all of us know that Darwin is rightly called as what? Father of evolution. And he was very much interested in studying about evolution, and I think all of you know that he traveled for 21 long years in a ship called HMS Beagle, and that is how even he was the person to give about the Darwin's finches. And we in the last session we studied about adaptive radiation, and the classical example for adaptive radiation was Darwin's finches. And according to Darwin, mutation is the only cause for evolution. So what is the opinion of Charles Darwin? He says that mutation, what is mutation? A sudden heritable change in the gene is the only cause for evolution. Though Darwin recognized the role of heritable variations in evolution, he could not explain the mechanism by which variations could appear. So according to Darwin, mutation is the only cause for evolution. Though Darwin recognized the role of heritable variations in evolution, but he could not explain the mechanism by which the variations could appear. So rediscovery of Mendel's work helped in understanding the origin and inheritance. So this is how the Charles Darwin tried to explain the mechanism of evolution. So according to Darwin, as I said, mutation is the only cause for evolution. And though Darwin recognized the role of heritable variations in evolution, he could not explain the mechanism by which variations could appear. So rediscovery of Mendel's work helped in understanding the origin and inheritance. Moving on to the next very important concept, you can see this beautiful person is none other than Hugo de Vries. Hugo de Vries. Hope you remember Hugo de Vries was also one person to rediscover even Mendel's work, right? So in 1901, Hugo de Vries was working on Oenothera lamarckiana, which is commonly called as evening primrose, and postulated that mutation theory. He is the one who postulated the mutation theory. So in 1901, Hugo de Vries, working on an evening primrose plant, postulated the mutation theory to explain what? The process of organic evolution. According to mutation theory, so what does this mutation theory state? According to this mutation theory, the new species arises from the pre-existing species. So according to mutation theory, what is that? The new species arise from the pre-existing species due to a sudden change in the genetic material, that what we use the word called mutation. So what is the opinion of this mutation theory by Hugo de Vries? He says that the new species arise from the pre-existing one due to a sudden change in the genetic material, that is the gene, and that is called as what? Mutation. So sudden heritable changes are responsible for the process of formation of new species That is what is the opinion of Hugo de Rice. So according to Hugo de Rice, mutations are random and directionless, while Darwin's variations were small and had direction. So there is a slight change from Darwin's theory. According to Hugo de Rice, what does he say? Mutations are random and directionless, while Darwin's variations were small and had direction. He believed mutations caused speciation. What is speciation? Speciation is nothing but the process of formation of new species. Process of formation of new species is called speciation. So according to Lamarck, according to Hugo de Rice, he was of the opinion that mutations are random and directionless, and he believed that mutations caused what? Speciation. That is nothing but the process of formation of new species. So in 1901, Hugo de Rice, working on Onetra lamarckiana, that is evening primrose, postulated what? Mutation theory. According to this theory, what does this theory state? New species arise from the pre-existing ones due to a sudden heritable change in the gene, and that is nothing but called mutation. And according to Hugo de Rice, mutations are random and directionless, whereas according to Darwin, variations are whereas variations were small and had direction. So he believed that what? He believed that mutations caused what? Speciation, that is nothing but the process of formation of new species. Moving on to the next very important concept, what is saltation? What is saltation? This is a very common question which is asked in the exam. What is saltation? What is saltation? A single step large mutation is called saltation. What is saltation? A single step large mutation is called saltation. That is, a new species originates abruptly due to mutation. What does it state? A new species originates abruptly due to mutation. So what is saltation? A single step large mutation is called saltation. A single step large mutation is called saltation. A new species originates abruptly due to mutation. So this is a very important question which is asked in the exam. Moving on to the next very important concept called Hardy-Weinberg principle, or it is also called as genetic equilibrium. So it was put across by two scientists by name Hardy and Weinberg. So G.H. Hardy, that is G.H. Hardy and Weinberg in 1908. G.H. Hardy, a British mathematician. He was a British mathematician, and Weinberg was a German physicist. So these two scientists put across what we call it as Hardy-Weinberg principle, or it is also called as what? Genetic equilibrium. Now let us understand what is this principle. What is the statement of this principle? This principle states that gene frequency of a population is stable and remains constant from generation to generation. So what does this Hardy-Weinberg, until and unless it is disturbed by certain factors. So what does this principle state? According to this principle, it states that gene frequency of a population is stable and remains constant from generation to generation. And according to this principle, evolution depends on the change of the gene frequency. So what is the heart? This is also a very important question from examination point of view, which is usually asked in the examination. So what does this principle state? It states that gene frequency of a population is stable and remains constant from generation to generation until and unless it is disturbed by certain external factors. And according to this principle, evolution depends on the change in the gene frequency. And Hardy, that is Hardy and Weinberg, use this algebraic equations to explain this principle. What is that principle? P square plus Q square is equal to 1. Right. Now let us understand this. So as I said, P plus Q is equal to 1 can be applied to any population to find out the gene frequency. That is, P plus Q is equal to 1 can be applied to any population to find out the gene frequency. And according to Hardy-Weinberg law, P plus Q is equal to 1 or 100%. According to Hardy-Weinberg law, P plus Q is equal to 1, or what we call it as 100%. So P plus Q is equal to 1 can be applied to any population to find out the gene frequency. And according to here Hardy-Weinberg, P plus Q is equal to 1 or 100%. Let us assume the frequency of A gene, capital A gene and small a gene in the population is 50%. Let us assume. Here you can see P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1. This is what? This is the algebraic equation. Algebraic equation. What is that equation? P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1. Suppose let us assume the frequency of capital A gene and small a gene in the population is 50%. Now let us apply this algebraic equation. What is that algebraic equation? P plus Q whole square is equal to P square plus 2PQ plus Q square. So here, hence, so for example, P is equal to 50%, that is half, that is equal to 0.5%. Q is equal to 50%, that is half of it. Then that is 0.5%. This is also 0.5, this is also 0.5. Apply this for this algebraic equation, that is P square 0.5 whole square plus 2PQ, 2 into PQ, 2 into 0.5 into 0.5 plus 0.5 whole square, that is 0.25 plus 0.5 plus 0.25 is equal to how much? 100%. So what does it state? P plus Q is equal to 1 or P plus Q is equal to 1 or 100%. This is an equation which is usually asked in the examination. So what is the formula that is used, the algebraic equation that is used in this Hardy-Weinberg principle? Hope you have understood. As I said, Hardy-Weinberg principle is also called as what? Genetic equilibrium, which states that, and these two scientists, that is G.H. Hardy, a British mathematician and a German physician by Weinberg in 1908 proposed this Hardy-Weinberg principle, which is also called as what? Genetic equilibrium. What does this principle state? That gene frequency of a population is stable and remains constant from generation to generation until and unless it is disturbed by external factors. And according to this principle, evolution depends on the change in the gene frequency. And Hardy and Weinberg gave the algebraic equation. What is that? P square plus 2PQ plus Q whole square is equal to Q square is equal to 1. That is, what is it? That is P plus Q is equal to 1 can be applied to any population to find out the gene frequency. And according to Hardy-Weinberg, P plus Q is equal to 1 or 50%. So let us assume the frequency of A gene and a small capital A gene and small a gene is 50%. So P is equal to 50%, that is half, that is 0.5. And Q is equal to 50%, that is half, that is equal to 0.5%. P plus, that is P square plus 2PQ plus Q square, apply it. So 0.05 whole square plus 2 into 0.5 into 0.5 plus 0.5 whole square, you get 0.25 plus 0.5 plus 0.25, where you get this as what? 100%. Right? So this is the equation, that is equal to 1, or what we call it as what? That is equal to 1. 0.25 plus 0.5 plus 0.25 is equal to 1. So P plus Q is equal to 1. Here 1. Suppose if you want to express it in terms of percentage, 25% P square plus 50% PQ plus 25% Q square is equal to how much? 100%. That is P plus Q is equal to 1, or if it is calculated in terms of percentage, it will be P plus Q is equal to 100%. So for example, in a population, as I said, if we consider two genes like A and A, capital A and small a, these genes will be represented as AA and small a, small a. If P and Q represent the frequency of alleles A and A, the probability of A and A appearing on both the homologous chromosomes is the product of its probabilities, that is P square and Q square. The probability of capital A, small a appearing together is 2PQ. Hence, it can be represented by P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1. So this is all about the Hardy-Weinberg principle. Now let us understand the factors affecting the Hardy-Weinberg principle. As I said, so according to Hardy-Weinberg law, the gene frequency in a population remains stable and constant from generation to generation unless and until it is disturbed by external factors. So now let us understand what is this factors all about. The factors that affect the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. One is called the gene flow. Second one is called the gene pool. Third is called gene frequency. Fourth is called genetic drift, which is also called Sewall-Wright effect, named after the scientist. So what are the factors that affect the Hardy-Weinberg principle? What does the Hardy-Weinberg principle state? That the gene frequency for a population remains stable and constant from generation to generation until and unless it is disturbed by external factors like gene flow, gene pool, gene frequency and genetic drift. Gene flow is also called as what? Gene migration. Now let us see, the very word itself will tell you. What do you mean by migration? Transfer. So the transfer of genes between the population of different gene pool which differs genetically but can interbreed is called as gene flow. What is gene flow? The transfer of genes between the population of different gene pools which differs genetically but can interbreed is called as what? Gene flow. And this results in what? Production of new combinations. So gene flow is responsible for the production of new combinations. Moving on to gene pool. Pool means what? Together. So the sum total of genes occurring in sexually reproducing population in a geographical area at given time is called gene pool. So what is gene pool? How do we define the word? All these terms are very important. They might ask, particularly for 1 mark, they might ask gene flow, they might ask gene pool, genetic frequency, what is genetic drift, what is Sewall-Wright effect, what is founder effect. All these are the questions which are commonly asked in the examination from this particular concept what I am explaining in today's session, right? So what is gene pool? As I said, the sum total of genes occurring in a sexually reproducing population in a geographical area at a given time is called as what? Gene pool. Now what is genetic frequency? The frequency of any given gene in a population relative to all its alleles remains in the same locus. Frequency means what? The frequency of any given gene in a population relative to all its alleles remains same in the locus. Then what is genetic drift? Or it is also called as what? Sewall-Wright effect, named after the scientist by name Sewall-Wright. So it is a random changes in the gene frequency in a small population purely by chance is called as genetic drift. So what is genetic drift? It is a random changes in the gene frequency in a small population purely by chance is called as genetic drift. And as I said, it is an evolutionary mechanism observed by Sewall-Wright, and hence it is called as Sewall-Wright effect. So the change in allele frequency is so different in the new populations that they become a different species. Hence, the original drifted population becomes founders for new species, and hence the effect is called as what? Founder effect. As I said, this is very important, which is asked. What is founder effect? What is Sewall-Wright effect? So what is it? So the original drifted population become founders for the new species, and the effect is called as what? Founder effect. So what is founder effect? The original drifted population becomes founders for the new species, and the effect is called as what? Founder effect. So all these are the factors which are going to affect the Hardy-Weinberg principle, namely the gene flow, the gene pool, and the gene frequency, and the genetic drift. Next, moving on to the next, that is bottleneck effect. What is this bottleneck effect? This occurs in population which are exposed to the factors. So obviously we know many populations are exposed to various external factors. It might be like floods, drought, fire, etc. that may reduce their population size drastically. This is a very common natural calamity which happens in the nature, and which is also a reason for what? For the reduction of for the population size to reduce. And in survivors of bottleneck, some of the alleles may become eliminated. As you know, the survivors who have survived in spite of all these natural calamities, they are called as bottleneck, right? So some of the alleles that are found in these bottleneck survivors may also be eliminated due to some various reasons. So as I said, only the one who has the capacity to survive against all these natural calamities can be able to survive. So that means this occurs in population which are exposed to the factors like floods, drought, fire, etc., that may reduce their population size drastically. And moving on to the genetic recombination. The very word itself will tell you what do you mean by recombination? Mixing of the genes. So this or exchange of genes between non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes during the process of formation of gametes is called genetic recombination. Genetic recombination is very much important for what? Variations. And as I said, variations are very, very important for what? For evolution. The changes that happens in due course of time in an organism, we call it as what? Variations. And that variations will lead to what? Evolution. So genetic recombination is nothing but this is exchange of genes between non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes during the process of formation of gametes. Then mutations, already we have explained what are mutations. Mutations are nothing but sudden or spontaneous and permanent changes in the genetic makeup of an individual. So mutations are the sudden, spontaneous, permanent changes in the genetic makeup of an individual. Then comes natural selection. So what is natural selection? It is the process of selection of better adapted individual with useful variation by the nature, and individuals less adapted to the environment are eliminated, and selecting those better adapted by the nature is taking place. So natural selection is very, very important. So as I said, I think already we have come across this in industrial melanism, that is the two types of moth that is called Biston Bitillaria, which had the white and peppered, it is called white peppered moth, the other one called the black one called Biston Carbonaria. And in before the industrial revolution, the Biston Bitillaria were 99% and Biston Carbonaria were only 1%. But after the industrial revolution, as I said, because of the industries coming up and more soot depositing on the tree trunks, so the white winged moth disappeared and almost the black winged moth were more dominant. So in that case, Biston Carbonaria became 99% and the Biston Bitillaria became 1%. So that means what? Natural selection. Nature selects the best to survive and the weak will perish. You also might have come across example of giraffe, Lamarck's theory, that is as inheritance of acquired characters. Hope you remember that the ancestral giraffe had a short neck, but in due course of time, due to famine, there was only a small, there were only a few leaves on the trees, and the giraffe started stretching its neck to reach the leaves, and thereby there was a change in the genetic constitution of that particular giraffe, and thereon from generation to generation, the long neck gene was transferred from one generation to generation, and it is also what? Survival, struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. So it was for this change in the gene was for a better cause. So even that also is a very good example, right? So all these are the factors which are going to affect the Hardy-Weinberg principle. Moving on to the next very important concept, that is operation of natural selection on different traits. As we know, the operation of natural selection in a population can lead to stabilizing, that is stabilizing selection, directional selection, and disruptive selection. So as I said, natural selection may lead to selection of different traits, and the operation of natural selection in a population can lead to what? Stabilizing selection, disruptive selection, and directional selection. Now let us study one by one. That is the first one called the stabilizing selection, second one called the directional selection, and the third one called disruptive selection. Moving on to the first one, that is the stabilizing selection. 2 and 3. Here you can see in this beautiful picture, see the curve there, how it is. So here in stabilizing selection, more individuals acquire mean value. That is, it occurs when natural selection favor the intermediate states of continuous variations. So what is it? Stabilizing selection. In stabilizing selection, more individuals acquire what? Mean value. And it occurs when natural selection favors the intermediate states of continuous variation. Here you can see the bell-shaped curve here. So here you can see the bell-shaped curve becomes narrow. Here you can see it is narrow. It becomes more and more narrow. Due to what? Due to elimination of extreme variations. So here you can see it becomes more and more narrow. So here it was like this. Now it becomes more narrow like this due to the elimination of the extreme variants. Right. So this, and the classical example which you can give is the babies with average weight tend to survive better than the ones with a small and large sized babies. So you can take an example. Here also you can see short tails. Here you can see that is the moderate traits against both extremes. So here you can see short tail mess up the cat's balance. Long tails drag on the ground. Medium tails are best. So here also babies with average weight tend to survive better than the small and the large sized babies. So that is about the stabilizing selection. Moving on to the next one. Here you can see the second one in figure 2, that is here. Here you can see in figure 2, that is more individuals acquire value other than mean character value. So more individuals acquire value other than the mean character value. It occurs when natural selection favors one extreme of the continuous variation. Here, when it occurs when natural selection favors the intermediate states of continuous variation. Here, as you know, the babies with average weight is neither small nor large. So it is medium. So also here, the favors the intermediate states. Here, in a directional selection, more individuals acquire value other than mean character value, and it occurs when natural selection favors one extreme of continuous variation. Here you can see the bell-shaped curve shifts to one direction. Here you can see the bell-shaped curve shifts to one direction. From here it moves to this direction. So this was the original population, and this is the population after selection. Here also you can see this is the original population, and here you can see the population becomes more narrow. So this is the population after selection. And what is the example you can take? You can take the industrial melanism, that is the peppered moth, right? So as we know that due to the changes in the environment, you know, the peppered moth started vanishing, and the black one started appearing more on the tree trunks, right? So next, moving on to the disruptive selection, that is figure 3. Here you can see figure 3, that is the disruptive selection. So more individuals acquire peripheral character value at both sides of the distribution curve. It occurs when natural selection favors both extremes of continuous variations. Here it is favoring only one extreme of continuous variation. Here it favors both the extremes of the continuous variation, and the bell-shaped curve separates into two peaks. Here you can see it separates into two peaks. Before it was one. So after selection, disruptive selection, it is shifted into two peaks. So that is, and the example you can give is the elimination of, you can give the example of elimination of medium-sized African finches with large and small beaked finches based on the availability of food. So this is about the that is the operation of natural selection on different traits. As I said, the operation of natural selection in a population can lead to what? To lead to three types, that is stabilizing, directional and disruptive selection. Moving on to the first one, as I said, stabilizing selection. It occurs when natural selection favors the intermediate states of continuous variation. So here, what will the shape become? Here you can see the bell-shaped curve narrows. Due to what? Due to elimination of extreme variations. You can take the example of what? Babies with average weight can survive better than the babies with small and large weight. Then moving on to the second one, directional selection. It occurs when natural selection favors one extreme of continuous variation and the bell-shaped curve shifts toward one direction. Here you can see it shifts to one direction. Example you can take of industrial melanism, that is about the peppered moth. Then disruptive selection, more individuals acquire peripheral character value at both sides of the distribution, and it occurs when natural selection favors both extremes of continuous variation and the bell-shaped curve separates into what? Separates into two peaks like this. And the example you can take is what? Elimination of the medium-sized African finches to a what? Into a large and small beaked finches based on the availability of food. Hope you have understood this. This is also very important from examination point of view. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in today's session. So in the coming session, I'll be explaining about the origin and evolution of man, a very, very interesting concept for the next session. So I'll be back with some more and the last concepts of this very interesting chapter called evolution. Till then, goodbye and thank you.